Welcome to District 1, the podcast. Your host is Michelle Valenzuela. She is joined by Superintendent Gabriel Trujillo.
That was Cruz Valdez, a fifth grader at Monzo Elementary, welcoming everyone to our podcast today. Hi, Dr. Trujillo. How are you surviving this very busy week?
Hello, it's great to be back. Yes, it's been a very, very busy week, but we have a great team here at the district office and around the district, so we plan to thrive, not just survive.
One question that we're getting a lot out there in the community, is the teacher walkout a strike?
That's a great question, and I'm glad that the focus of this week's podcast is all about the Red for Ed movement, its goals, and its impact on the Tucson Unified School District. This is not a strike. A strike is a job action taken by employees against their direct employer with regard to concerns or in opposition to conditions of working conditions that are specifically controlled by the employer. This is not the case. We have thousands of employees that will be participating in a Thursday work stoppage so that the employees can engage in activities that would express their concern about the level of support we're receiving from our local and state government with regard to public education.
I know that we as a district were originally earlier in the week trying to keep our schools open for students, but then we made the decision to close them on Thursday and Friday. Can you talk a little bit about how that decision was made, how it evolved, and what the key factors were?
I feel very, very passionately about the concept of the local neighborhood school. And at the heart of the local neighborhood school is instruction. A school's primary purpose is to teach, is to purvey knowledge and to cultivate knowledge. But a neighborhood school is also the local clothing bank. It's also the place where kids get a meal. It's also the place where kids get access to air-conditioned facilities. It's also a place where kids get access to books and literature and the adults that love and care for them. Many of our students do live in poverty. We have Southern Arizona's largest refugee population. Many of them live at or below the poverty level. Many sectors of our district have upwards of 85-90% free and reduced lunch communities in which they serve. I feel very passionately about continuing to operate or making the attempt to operate in the face of this work stoppage with the intent of not having the community or our most vulnerable citizens or children pay an unnecessary cost of a discontinuance of services for this action to be taken on Thursday. We started out with that intention, but then we also have a priority that supersedes that intention, and that priority is safety, student and staff safety. When we started to see from the daily attendance reports that we pull off of the online system for employees to call in absences, we started to see that Thursday was going to have thousands of employees calling out on that particular day. We had no other choice. We will never place an employee or a child in a situation where supervision is tenuous at best with regard to our ability to provide 100% safe conditions for our employees or our kids. So in the best interest of the district, the kids, and our employees, I felt that there was no other option.
We are saying that the schools are closed to students except for during the breakfast and lunch meal times, but are open for employees who want to work. Why did we make that decision rather than just telling all employees that they will have to stay home?
So because it's not a strike, what you have is a regular contract day. Teachers work a 207-day contract. This is just a normal day in their contract in which thousands of employees have called in using existing procedures, following existing procedures for time reporting, and exercising their right to take the personal days that we've given them. When you think about it, it's not unlike any other contract day. If you look at the 207 contract days, on any one of those 207 days of our contract year, you have employees every single day exercising their right to take personal leave. It doesn't change the fact that it's still a contract day. What's different about Thursday, April 26th, is we have a regular contract day in which almost 2,200 certified employees have called in either a sick or personal day. An additional 600 classified employees have called in a sick or a personal day. What that's done is it's inhibited our ability to offer instructional services, classes. We will not be able to offer classes that day. Supervision of students is also off the table because we simply don't have the staff. Transportation is closed down for that day because we don't have the staff. But the physical buildings will still be open. The lights will be on, principals will be on duty. Any employee that wants to report to work, it's a regular contract day, they have the right to show up to their building. Custodians have the right to show up to their building and fulfill the variety of work orders that are pending at all of our campuses. Teachers have the right to show up to work. We did not want to be in a situation where a total district closure forced employees to unnecessarily report their time. And we didn't want to make the closure of district schools an unnecessary barrier that would create a financial hardship on any of our employees. And our district is always about a healthy respect for the variety of political, personal opinions and passions that our employees have. We are a place of tolerance and diversity in opinion. That's why we are politically and religiously and partisan free. So just like our employees have every right in the world to express their right to support public education, to go to the Capitol, to do what they feel they need to do, we also are responsible for creating an environment for our employees that do want to exercise their right to assume their duties on Thursday and report to work.
And we have announced that all the decisions and services in open schools for employees also applies to Friday. So schools will be closed to students on Friday, will be open to employees, will have food service. You have said that you are aiming for 48-hour notice to the community about closures. What about Monday with the weekend?
We have a district level planning team that meets daily at this point. Representatives from food service, transportation. You're there, Michelle, is our leader for communications. Representatives from the elementary, the middle, and the high schools, and finance. So this central planning team meets daily at this point because we have to react to what is a very fluid and ever-changing situation. We are 100% and totally dependent upon the actions of the legislature and the governor, and we're equally dependent upon the actions of the Arizona Educators United. We feel in this situation that there should be no circumstance where we're not able to give parents at least 48 hours notice. In terms of Monday, we will be one more time meeting on Thursday of this week to be able to make some decisions about whether or not we have adequate staffing levels for Monday, which would be Monday, April 30th.
You spend a lot of time at schools, on campuses. I know you've been on multiple campuses in the last week or two. What are you hearing out there? How are employees, our parents, our students feeling, or what are they telling you?
There's a lot of support for the Red for Ed movement. I think many of the parents, I had the privilege of attending what's called TUPAC, the Tucson Unified Parent Advisory Council. And I was happy to walk into the school cafeteria and see so many parents just championing public education and standing behind their teachers. Some of the themes that have emerged in conversations with parents revolve around childcare and food service. These are parents who talk to me in this manner who are really living paycheck to paycheck. And they're always on my mind when I'm talking about planning. I think about that parent that shared with me, look, the 10 meals that my child gets over the 5 days, that's $20 or $30 less dollars I have to spend at Fry's on Saturday.
Can you give a little detail on how that's going to work?
Every single school will be offering breakfast from 8 to 9 a.m. and then lunch from 11 to 12, where kids of any age, all the way up to the age of 18, they can just walk down to their local cafeteria during those times and get food for free.
And will we be providing any transportation for those meal times?
Transportation services will not be available Thursday or Friday due to the amount of bus drivers that have called in a personal day. We're strongly encouraging that parents and or grandparents or whoever's watching our little ones accompany their kids to the breakfast or the lunch. And lunch services for the adults $3. Breakfast services for the adults, $2. I'm seeing a lot of, I love my child's teacher, and I'm behind my child's teacher. From the teacher group, a lot of what I'm hearing is, what's going to happen to me? Is there going to be some sort of retaliation? Is there going to be some... And I've really tried to, everywhere that I go, say this is a safe and supportive environment. This is a non-retaliatory environment. We support your right to take a personal day or a sick day. We support the mission of Red for Ed. We support increased funding for public education. The other concern is, what if I stay? Are the teachers going to look crossways at me? Are they going to look at me funny? Am I going to be called names? Am I going to be chastised in any way? I have a really high opinion and a high level of respect for our employees, not just for the great work that they do, for being great citizens, and for making the Tucson Unified School District such an amazing place with regard to diversity of opinion.
You said that we support the mission of the Red for Ed initiative. Do you support the Walkout?
We support the mission of Red for Ed. We support making the funding and the support of public education the centerpiece of the state's budget each and every single year. It should be the thing that we spend the most on. And when you're supporting teachers and you're standing behind teachers, you are standing behind Arizona's next generation of leaders, our children. With that being said, because of the importance of the classroom teacher in a child's academic and social emotional life, I cannot support any action that takes teachers out of the classroom. Now, I'm fully behind walk-ins. I'm fully behind mobilizing community members. I think the walk-ins continue to be a beautiful example of teachers exercising their First Amendment rights in a very, very powerful way. I would have loved to have seen the walk-in movement continue on and evolve into more of a grassroots organizing of parents and community members to directly engage in collective levels, directly engage our legislators and inspire change in that fashion, as opposed to a work stoppage.
We have had a lot of questions over the last few days, and we'll go through some of the most common ones here in a moment. I do want people to know that we have an updated Q&A on our website, www.TUSD1.org, and it's also on our Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/Tucson Unified. We are answering questions there as well. Everyone is welcome to send any questions to our special email line. It's answers@TUSD1.org. I personally have answered about 200 questions so far just through that email, and I answer them as fast as I can. So if you have a burning question, you're more than welcome to send it there. One of the questions we're getting a lot from our parents of seniors: what about graduation? How will a walkout affect graduation ceremonies? And how will it affect their children's, and my child actually, ability to get that diploma?
All 89 schools have enough hours and instructional time, extra hours and instructional time, to survive a 2-day walkout. Once we get to 3 days, I can't make that statement anymore. So if the work stoppage extends to 3 days, we will now start to see schools have to go into what I call a 1-for-1 situation. Teacher contracts are for 207 days. If I'm asking somebody to work a 208th, there's a cost to that. We must be paying the teachers to bring them back. We'll have to pay the support staff to bring them back. We're going to have to pay the utilities. We're going to have to pay the food service. There's a sizable cost to having to add on extra days. It's a very, very fluid situation, heavily dependent upon the amount of days in which the work stoppage continues.
Will we still hold our graduation ceremonies on the same dates for parents who are bringing people in, who are making plans for celebrations?
As of right now, because no school is affected with a 1-day work stoppage or a 2-day or even a 3, Graduation right now is unaffected. This is a larger scale decision. As I mentioned at our governing board meeting last night, a long-term plan looks radically different than a short-term get us through 1 day, 2 day. And at that point, governing board direction is going to be required for the level of decisions that need to be made. And one of the biggest decisions that'll have to be made is graduation.
We have said in several of our communications that regardless of whether the calendar has to be extended, we're not changing those graduation dates. Should people be concerned about the plane tickets that the grandparents have and relatives and friends coming in?
So the actual ceremony's fine. We can hold it on the date. We can have the cap and gowns. We can have the parents. We can have the ceremony. But the decision whether or not our governing board wants to certify that last minute of the whole ceremony, the decision of whether or not our board wants to certify the graduates before they've actually met those final requirements, that's got to be their call. But that's a long-term scenario that we're not at yet. So as of right now, graduation's unaffected. Nobody has to make up any days. I think we'll cross that bridge fairly quickly if we see we're headed in that direction.
What about before and after school care? Are those programs going to operate?
Before and after school care programs will no longer be available. We are working with the city to try to see if the existing KidCo program that's funded by the city of Tucson will still be operable in 7 of our schools.
What about the infant and early learning centers, the Brickta and Shoemaker centers?
Infant and early learning centers will be fully operational. They'll be running as normal on both days.
What about field trips?
Our teachers have proudly stepped up and said, yeah, we're going to continue with the field trip because we feel these are 2 separate issues. I will be gone on April 26th. I will be exercising my First Amendment right. I will be exercising my right to take a personal day. But I'm also coming back on Saturday because I committed to a trip for our kids to the Grand Canyon or to Saguaro National Park. And I'm still all in for that field trip. So we went and we confirmed each trip one by one. And with the exception of just a few cancellations, have been able to verify that all field trips are still on.
A few questions that are common from employees. Do they have to put in their normal time off requests if they don't plan to work?
So anybody wanting to come to work simply shows up to work in their building, in their respective site. Anybody who wants to be absent is responsible, just like any other contract day, for calling into the ASOP system to report sick or personal leave.
And if a teacher has taken leave, can they still come to school?
When you're taking a sick or a personal day, it means that there is a factor that is prohibiting you from coming into work that day. So in the spirit of avoiding a perception of contradiction, we would ask that our employees hold to that. If you're calling in, we're not planning to see you in the building.
Some employees who are planning to work have asked if they can bring their children to school since they are not able to go to their normal school.
We'll work with our employees on a case-by-case basis. If you're listening and that's you, contact your supervisor immediately with regard to April 26th and Friday, April 27th.
A reminder, if you have a question, you can always check with your supervisor. You can email answers@TUSD1.org. And you can also check the Q&As that we have posted on the web and on Facebook. We have also sent information via email to our staff and parents. So if anyone outside listening to this has questions that have not been addressed, please feel free to ask them. We are here to answer the questions. We're here to do our best to share information. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know?
For all of our proud parents out there, nothing is more important than you being able to count on us to take care of your children. I thank you for that. And I want to make a guarantee to all of you who have such superstar students that have perfect attendance. No absence caused by this work stoppage will be held against any child in any way. We will be automatically entering excused absences. I just want to make all of our proud parents out there, I want to set their minds at ease that these days will not count against their superstar students as they continue on the road to perfect attendance.
That reminds me of another question that we have been getting for athletes. Normally the policy is you can't play in a game if you're absent that day from school. Does this situation affect our athletes?
April 26th and April 27th will be treated the same for athletes. They're automatically excused absences, and they're not to be held against our student athletes or our student performance artists. I do believe that the performance arts activities also have the same rule.
Finally, how long do you think this thing will go on?
That's one of the few questions I just can't answer, but we have to pay very, very close attention to communications coming out of the governor's office, coming out of the legislature. I want to compliment the leadership of the Tucson Education Association and President Jason Fried. I think a lot of people forget that they're not in control of this movement. They're not the key decision makers. I think they're working very well with us. The lines of communication are wide open, and I'm proud of that communication. And one thing that's really rang true for me is how much they care about the district.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this information today. You can find previous episodes of our District 1 podcast on SoundCloud. The address is www.soundcloud.com/Tucson Unified. I want to thank Cruz Valdez for bringing us in for today's podcast, and he is going to take us out as well. Thank you.
I learned so much about ecology because of Monzo Elementary. This is Cruz Valdez signing off.